Hello, Trienne here. Welcome back to the Be That Create That channel. I am so excited to have my guest with me today. She is going to share a little bit about what she does to create an impact in the world around her to make that difference that we're all looking to create and the person that we are working to become. As we know, leadership starts with a choice. So there's lots of different things in our journeys that help us become that person that we want to be so that we can create things out into the world that we feel like might be missing. So without haste here, we're going to bring on Donna. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being a part of the channel. I'm excited to share what you do with our group. I feel like we have some similar interests. So things that they may have already heard bits and pieces about, but you definitely have been in this space a lot longer than I have. So I'm excited to learn from you today as well. Why don't you just share with the community a little bit about what you do and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm a master mindset and life coach, and I've been doing the life coaching for 10 years, but I really have been in the world of psychology, brain science, personal development, and I bring in the Eastern wisdom of yoga, Buddhism, Ayurveda into my work. So it's a very holistic, integrative approach to creating change. So I love the hard science. I love to know how the brain works. I love the evidence-based studies that really anchor it in reality. And I love the spiritual side and the Eastern wisdom of, understanding that there's energy and there's things that we can't see, and bringing those together in a very practical way that we can apply to our day-to-day life and challenges and goals, and really look at making those changes on all levels: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
So how would you, for someone who's not been introduced to Ayurveda, even me, I'm like this very small snippet of what it is. How would you, in the simple terms, explain that theory to somebody?
Yeah, so Ayurveda is also known as yoga's sister science. So it actually comes from the same place yoga comes from. It's over 5,000 years old. It's the oldest healing science, the written healing science in history. And it really is all about cultivating wellness, not just treating disease. So it's very much a preventative medicine. So it's heavily based on lifestyle and diet and understanding how we connect with nature and how what's happening in nature, in the rhythms of nature, and in science, we know that as like circadian science, how that affects us internally. So when we understand how, these energy cycles are affecting us internally, then we can start to align with that. And that looks like, when we do certain things, when we go to bed, when we wake up, when we eat. So it's when we do things, how we do things, obviously what we're doing, what we're eating. And it's really one of my favorite definitions for Ayurveda is the art of living.
Oh, I love that.
How to have a body, how to have a mind, like how to navigate through life in a way that is optimal and graceful and easeful and aligned. So it's really answering the question, like, how do we be the healthiest and happiest version of ourselves? And it's like a guidebook. It really tells us exactly how to do that. And this is the information that we really never got, which should definitely be part of our education.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of people, who have talked over the past about like our healthcare system being more of like a sick care system.
Yeah.
And it truly is. When we really look at the holistic view of our human existence, it's like, let's start to look at the things that make us well.
Right.
Rather than just trying to treat those symptoms. And I think so many doctors are still at the treating of the symptoms. And sometimes there are symptoms that we don't even see or feel. We don't even know. Right.
Yeah.
So I do wish that this was something that was brought more forward for people. So in your work, how do you do that? How do you bring that to people without them going, what is that?
Yeah. And I think education goes a long way. And the way that I explain it is basically one of the principles of Ayurveda is that everything is made up of the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And so it's not obviously like physically these elements, but the qualities of these elements. So when I kind of go through each one and it's like, okay, when you think of earth qualities, what comes up? Well, it's heavy and steady and grounding and nurturing. And so we go through each of these elements, and that's all very, that makes a lot of sense to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talk about, well, these elements, they combine in certain ways that create these energies called doshas.
Mm-hmm.
And these energies are inside of us, and they're also in nature. So I then show them how, well, when you think of like an earthy person, they have a lot of these like earthy qualities. They usually tend to be, more easygoing. They're grounded, they're calm. And fiery people are, passionate and intense, and sometimes they're irritable and angry. And so when they can see the elements in themselves, like light bulbs go off, and it's like, okay, yes, I can totally see that. And, when we think of other people in our life, we can totally see how these elemental qualities show up. And then when I show them how the day also has these qualities. So for example, in the middle of the day when the sun is highest in the sky, that's obviously a time of day governed by the fire element.
Mm-hmm.
The fire element relates to our digestion. And so our digestion is strongest actually in the middle of the day. And when you understand that, that is really the optimal time to eat the most amount of food. So our main meal should really be in the middle of the day.
Should be that lunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be lunch. And it used to be pre-industrial revolution, before, the main meal got moved to the end of the day because everyone was going off to factories to work. But that's not actually the best time to eat our heaviest meal, because like the sun, when the sun goes down, our digestive fire also goes down.
Slows down. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now science is really showing us that, you can eat the same amount of food, but if you eat it at night versus eating it during the day, it will affect you very differently. You'll gain more weight, you'll have more inflammation, you'll have more health issues simply by the timing. And so science is really backing up everything that Ayurveda has been talking about for 5,000 years. Yeah. So when you start to kind of understand and see it in a logical way, then it starts to make a lot of sense. I always talk about, at 10 p.m., that's actually when the energy shifts from a grounded, heavy energy, which helps us prepare for sleep, to that second wind, when all of a sudden we're awake and we actually want to start eating again. It's like that second wave of fire energy. And so being able to just understand it first is really important, because it makes a lot of sense when you kind of map it all out like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then just really practical things. So eating, before 7 p.m., making lunch your main meal, going to bed by 10 p.m., and waking up, in those early morning hours, ideally 6 or a little bit before 6. And it depends slightly on the time of year. So these little changes can make a huge impact on how you feel. You have more energy, you'll sleep better, you have better digestion. People lose weight simply by changing when they're eating. Hormones get balanced, their moods stabilize. And all of this is simply through lifestyle, just like little tweaks that you can make that are make a lot of sense when you understand them, but it's not what most of us are doing.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that's like, it's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's not always easy to implement, because you're breaking some of these old habits that you've had in place now for however long, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the challenge, because we are tribal creatures, and our brains are literally designed to mimic the behaviors of people around us. So we live in a culture where people are overstimulating themselves at night. They're going to bed late. They're eating a lot late at night. They're snacking after dinner. So when you try to go against what the cultural norm is, and what people are doing around you, like in your household or in your social group, that's when a lot of that subconscious resistance comes in, because we don't want to feel like we're separate. We don't want to feel like we're different from everyone around us. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to connect with other people that are like-minded, that have similar values and goals, and work on this stuff together. So there is that sense of, I'm not doing this alone. I'm not the outcast. I'm not the weird one. Because I definitely have felt like that in doing this work. It's like people make fun of me for going to bed early. And I'm like, yep, I really care about feeling my best every single day. And I'm going to go to bed early so I can make that happen. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So, because some people, dog on the fact that we're making these changes, and part of it is because they don't want to make them, but they also
mhm,
don't understand what's on the other side of.
right.
When I started drinking more water, taking proper supplements, doing shakes in the morning, those types of things, it's like, no, I do this, and it might seem weird because it's ritualistic to me,
Yeah.
but you just don't understand it because you don't know what it feels like to be on the other side of that. And that's okay. Leadership
Yeah.
is a choice. Leadership is a decision.
Yeah.
Um, and some decisions are harder than others.
Yeah, and that's such a good point, and I often, people, I think, struggle with the whole, like, FOMO thing,
Mhm.
where it's if they make these changes, they're somehow missing out, but what they're not realizing is they're actually missing out on vitality and energy and optimal health and, like you're saying, all the benefits that come when you actually really feel your best and you have these rituals in place that pretty much guarantee that you will feel good every day.
Right.
And that is amazing. It's not, you feel like you have more sense of control over your life and your health and wellness, and how you feel physically is going to affect how you feel mentally and vice versa. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So where do you feel like the vision for your business is taking you? You've obviously been doing what you're doing for quite a long time. Like, what's next level for you?
Yeah, so I used to be really, really focused on the physical. I mean, I've been a yoga teacher for 20 years.
Mhm.
So, started out just very physical, like fitness based. And now it's moved a lot more into the mental, and the direction I'm going in now is really based on neuroplasticity and learning how to actually change our brain to create the changes we want. Because what I noticed when I was really focusing on just teaching people habits is some people would be able to make the changes pretty quickly, and some people just would struggle. And
Mhm.
they just had so much resistance. And they did want to make the changes, but they just could not get themselves to do that.
Mhm.
So now I coach the unconscious mind, because that's a result of your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind governs 95% of your habits, behaviors, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, perspectives. So your conscious mind can have a goal. Like your conscious mind could say, okay, I really want to lose weight, and I know I should, eat less sugar and flour,
Mhm.
move my
But then
body
I grab
more.
a cookie.
But then your subconscious mind is like, no, no, what about like our treat? What about the reward? What about I deserve this? And all the beliefs that have kept, basically created where you are now. And
Mhm.
your subconscious mind is heavily invested in you maintaining status quo and not
Mhm.
changing. So your conscious mind wants to change, but it's only 5% of you. And then the 95% of you does not want to change. So
Mhm.
in order to actually create those changes, we have to work with the unconscious mind, or it's just not going to work. It's going to be like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and beating your head against the wall, and just kind of using willpower to make a change that's only temporary, and then backsliding and reverting back. And it's kind of like yo-yo thing that so many people struggle with. That's so frustrating.
Mhm. And that is why people are unconsciously just walking through life, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're like, "Whoa, it's
Yeah.
2023. We've already hit June or July. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?"
Yeah.
And it is because they're not actively taking part in the decisions that they're making every day, because
Yeah.
habit change can be scary.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any change, again, your subconscious mind gets a little freaked out because it's uncertain, and it's like, I don't know what's going to happen if I change, and what are people going to think, and how are people going to perceive me, and what is going to be the effect on my life, even though the
Mhm.
change might feel like a positive one and one that you want, and you can see like the possible benefits from making that change.
Mhm.
It's still uncertain, and as humans, we don't really like that. We like to feel like we can predict the future and know what's going to happen, but we never really can. But we think if we just keep everything the same and stay the same and do the same things, and we somehow have that sense of certainty in our lives that feels
So
safe.
one of my for sure rituals that I feel like makes things successful for me is I have a set morning routine, and I can usually tell when I miss a piece of that.
Yeah.
And for some people, like we talk about in this community quite a lot, it doesn't matter if it's a morning routine, a night routine, a midday routine, something is a non-negotiable for you. So in your experience now, what is one of those things that is a non-negotiable for you throughout your day that you feel like is adding to your level of success?
Yeah. I mean, same, like I have a morning routine, I have an evening routine, I have, eating routines. And so now those are just such staples, and they're all kind of become non-negotiables in my life. But I always think of like when I'm traveling, when I'm not in my normal environment, then definitely I would say making sure I get enough sleep. That's probably the number one, even if, I don't sleep necessarily at the same times that I would when I'm in my normal routine, but making sure I am getting enough. So I still try, even when I'm traveling, to, get to bed around that 10 o'clock mark, if I can help that. And sometimes I can't, just because, everyone else is kind of dictating what we're doing. And then movement. So I might not have my morning workout like I normally do, but just making sure I'm active throughout the day. So I might just be walking more throughout the day, but movement is huge. And something I heard recently that was such a great way of thinking about it is, so many people struggle with low energy. But if you're not moving your body is basically telling your body, oh, I need energy, so I better create it. So it's creating a need for more energy. So your body, because your muscles carry mitochondria, which is like how you create energy. So that was just a really interesting way to think about it. Sometimes we think, oh, I don't have energy to move, but moving actually will create more energy.
Yes. A body that is not in motion stays not in motion. A body that is in motion will create more motion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I am sure that the group is obviously going to want to know more about what you do and where you're hanging out. So if someone wants to get in your space, get in your world, hear more of your brilliance on this, where are they going to be looking for you?
Well, I actually have something going on right now. It's called Ayurveda Summer Camp, and it's just a 3-part video series, which really gives you like a little bit, goes into more detail on, the energy cycles that I mentioned, the times of the day, the habits, and there's a assessment. So you can do a little bit of a personal health assessment and a daily routine assessment to just see where you are in relation to these optimal habits and routines, and then really decide, what changes you want to make. So I think that's a great resource, and it's totally free. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a website. Everything is basically just my name. So just search my name anywhere. I also have my own podcast. It's called The Pleasure Project.
Okay.
And it's really, I go a lot deeper into the mindset work and the emotional regulation work. And that podcast is centered more on that. But I do talk about health as well, and routines and building habits and making changes, neuroplasticity, all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being on the channel. I am obsessed with some of the things that you said today that I want to dive a little bit deeper in and see, sometimes it's just those small tweaks that you can make. And if you can do 1% every day, right, we're totally 365% better at the end of the year. So a little bit at a time helps.
Absolutely. That is the thing I always talk about is we probably all have like laundry lists of things we want to change and improve, and areas that we feel like, could use some improvement, but change really does happen slowly. And so I think you're absolutely right. That 1% improvement approach, and just knowing that all of that adds up and it compounds. And the biggest thing about those 1% improvements is that you start to create an identity, and it starts to actually, there's less resistance. There's less unconscious resistance when you make changes that are small. Because when you try to make a big change, that's when your subconscious mind freaks out. But when you can make it really small, it's less scary. And so you're more willing to do it. And then if you can just do that 1% consistently, then you build a habit. And then it's so much easier to grow that habit and do more and go longer and all those things. So
that's why when people say, I'm going to go to yoga every single day, they don't go. But if I say I'm going to go every Thursday at 9 a.m., And this week I might add Tuesday, and then next week I might add Wednesday, right? It's that small
Exactly.
buildup because again, you start to feel so much better that you're almost become addicted to
Yes,
being better.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. Well,
Agreed.
thank you so much for everything that you shared with the community today. And I'll be sure to make sure that we get those proper links with everything when things go out in the different places. Otherwise, I have your website up. It's just donnaskoglund.com. So we'll make sure that that's in the show notes for everybody. And until we see you again on the channel, you guys, let's get intentional and really be creative with your life. We'll see you soon.